The Game Boy Light is an iteration of Nintendo's Game Boy lineup released exclusively in Japan in April of 1998. This was only a few months before the Game Boy Color would release in the same year, October in Japan and November in North America, perhaps explaining why it never made its way overseas. Still though, it is just a super cool device and one that's definitely worth having a little bit notoriety, and I think it's going to be fun looking at it today. This is indeed the box, and on the back we get a few notes stating that its main kind of features mainly being the lit up screen, so that you don't have to worry about worm light or any of those crazy third-party accessories which only kind of worked and usually made you look pretty goofy. The stamina now only taking 2 AA batteries and lasting about 12 hours even with the light on, and it's of course compatible with the entire lineup of original Game Boy games. Unfortunately, no Game Boy Color compatibility, of course, that being released that few months later. The Game Boy Light though really does have a nice sturdy design, fits perfectly in the palm of your hand, came in silver and gold varieties, and yeah, it looks a lot like a Game Boy Color. In fact, we got one kind of right here to compare it to. One of the main differences being the battery compartment on the back of the Game Boy Light is 2 kind of awkward bumps where they made a nice, sleeker, rounder sort of back when they had got the Game Boy Color out there a few months later, and then even comparing it to the Game Boy Pocket, which came out in 1996, so a couple years before. Much the same, of course, except without that backlight, and the back being much flatter because it took AAA batteries rather than AA ones. It otherwise works just like your typical Game Boy, so let's grab a cartridge. It does not have to be a Japanese one. This is a Japanese copy of Wario Land. However, the Game Boy was pretty nice in terms of being region-free, and you still get that on-off switch on the top, so let's flip that on. And you should get your Game Boy logo there. Of course though, otherwise we're just kind of using it in its standard mode right now. The switch at the top features another position, where if we push it more to the right, you'll notice that the light comes on. Of course, we have the lights in the room on right now, so it's not as noticeable as it could possibly be. So let's turn the lights off and compare how it looks. So as you can see, it lights up quite nice in the dark. Yes, everything kind of has a blue hue to it. Everything's gonna kind of look like it's underwater when you're using the light, but it gets the job done, and it's, again, better than using any of those kind of crazy accessories that we all would have had to use back in the day to keep playing our games when the light went out, or we were going through tunnels or whatever such. But yeah, it gets the job done, and definitely a cool entry in the Game Boy line of products, but naturally, not necessarily needed with how soon the Game Boy Color came out after that. And then again, unfortunately, that didn't even include this really cool feature. So why they made the Game Boy Light, I don't know. But if you're a Game Boy enthusiast, definitely consider checking one out. Of course, there's many other ways to play your Game Boy games with backlit screens these days, official or otherwise. Game Boy Advance SP and all those newfangled things coming out. But the Game Boy Light, still a neat piece of Nintendo history, and one it's fun to play from time to time. And again, this is what it looks like when the backlight is off, but the game is still indeed on, so you can't see anything. But push that button all the way back to the right again, that switch all the way to the right, and you're once again playing your games underwater. So I hope you enjoyed learning about the Game Boy Light today, seeing a demonstration of it. I'm sure it's something most people probably don't have too much experience with, and hope you'll join me next time when we look at something different. So thanks, and take care, everyone!